The last and biggest operation in the coastal strip has begun. Israeli tanks completely surrounded the southern part of the coastal strip, while on the northern line, the attack on all Hamas outposts began. Israel's 401st Brigade launched the biggest attack on the al-Shati battalion of the Hamas terrorist organization since the beginning of the war. The target is all Hamas outposts. In one spot alone, more than 150 militants were targeted. The record number of Hamas casualties has galvanized the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Numerous drones were observed moving along the southern Lebanese border, and Hezbollah militants began deploying anti-tank systems along the border. Israeli artillery, drones, and fighter jets are ready. With the sudden advance of a large number of Merkava tanks to the Lebanese border, the largest and most comprehensive operation of the last period has officially begun. The situation on the front line is critical. While the last-minute reports continue to come from the front line, let's start our video quickly without wasting time. In the first video I published yesterday, I announced that Israeli tanks surrounded the headquarters and command centers called fortresses of the Hamas terrorist organization on the southern line of the coastline. In this process, the Israeli army took control of the area as a result of intense clashes, but terrorist groups continued to fire at the checkpoints. With the complete encirclement of the area by the Israeli forces, the movement towards the east of the coastal strip began. But the army's main goal is to unite the northern and southern lines. You will understand what I am talking about much better in the following part of the video. With the first light of the morning, tanks of the Israeli army were seen moving towards Al-Sanaya Street in Gaza. With this, the operation to clear the besieged Hamas target and the terrorist members hiding in the neighborhood officially began. Firstly, the Israeli army moved on the point where the militants fired intermittently during the night. With the sudden advance of Merkava tanks, the first attack began. Hamas members fleeing behind the motorway in the east of the region began to be hit one after another by Merkava tanks. With the first attack, the infantry began to advance and surround the area on 4 points. As the Israeli forces advanced, fierce clashes broke out north of the line of attack. Israeli forces want to completely surround and clear the area and create a safe zone. Terrorist groups, on the other hand, continue to attack in small groups from many different points in order to completely prevent this siege. Despite the attacks of terrorist organizations, an intense attack was launched by Israeli tanks on the point you see on the map, and the area was completely surrounded. However, as I mentioned, the clashes are still ongoing, and the war in the region is not over. The Israeli army continued to send more tanks and infantry on the line of attack, but I can say that the situation in the region is quite critical. The Israeli army's encirclement of the area has led to an all-out mobilization of troops in the south of the coastal strip. The largest operation officially began on the northern front. First, the army identified the outposts of the Hamas terrorist organization on the coastal strip and took action. It was determined that there were 3 large outposts on the coastal strip. However, Israeli tanks and infantry moved to the region. The 401st Brigade of the Israeli army carried out the first attack with tanks on the al-Shati battalion of the Hamas terrorist organization near the al-Shati camp. Simultaneously, other tanks launched a strong attack on the Badr outpost, the main outpost of Hamas. After the first tank attack, explosions and smoke billowed from the area. The Israeli infantry mobilized at this time. The infantry entered the Badr outpost and its surroundings, eliminating a large number of members of the Hamas terrorist organization. In the process, missile launchers and a large number of ammunition were destroyed. Along with the first major operation, 2 more outposts in the vicinity of the main outpost were targeted by tanks. Israel's 401st Brigade detected Hamas members trying to escape. However, the terrorists started to run towards the Israeli forces, not realizing that they were surrounded. During this process, Hamas terrorists were fired upon from 3 areas. The operation ended with the successful conclusion of this attack. The official report from Israel officially announced that Hamas lost 156 soldiers at one point. In addition, a major advance was made in the coastal strip, and full control was established in the area. With the fall of Hamas's most powerful outpost very quickly, the next target will be Hamas militants and headquarters in the al-Shati camp. With the beginning of the infiltration of unmanned aerial vehicles into Israeli territory, it was observed that the Iron Dome air defense systems were activated. The air defense systems destroyed most of the drones sent by Hezbollah. It was determined that these drones were trying to collect images from the region. Hezbollah terrorist organization wants to collect images with unmanned aerial vehicles and then launch an attack with rockets. But the downing of the drones caused the Israeli forces to take action. In the meantime, Israeli forces began to fire heavy artillery fire at Ramya, Marawahin, and Itashab in southern Lebanon. Shortly afterwards, artillery shelled Hezbollah targets in Ramesh, east of the first point of attack. While the artillery shelling was taking place, unmanned aerial vehicles were actively collecting images from the area. After the first attack, Israeli artillery intensively shelled the coastal strip line in southern Lebanon with artillery. In this process, it was observed that Israeli tanks unexpectedly advanced to the border. Merkava tanks detected that terrorist groups affiliated to the Hezbollah terrorist organization were attacking with anti-tank missiles. For this reason, the tanks quickly reached the borderline, and a camp and cell belonging to Hezbollah were destroyed by Merkava tanks. Simultaneously, unmanned aerial vehicles continued to collect images, and a mortar unit was found to be hiding on the border. After the first image was taken, a drone loaded with ammunition destroyed the Hezbollah mortar unit with a single shot. After the successful operations, the breaking point is about to occur in Gaza. Israeli forces have made very rapid progress in the areas where the war was thought to be blocked, destroying the areas and outposts where Hamas is strongest. The siege on the northern line is nearing completion. The intensity of the fighting is increasing. But I can say that progress has not lost any momentum. After the unification of the coastal strip is completed, the fighting will start to shift to the center line. As the area of control continues to advance, it has clearly begun to expand. With the fall of the al-Shadi camp under the control of the Israeli army, the collapse of Hamas will begin very quickly. In the early days of the war, I thought that in the areas where Hamas tunnels and outposts were concentrated, the Israeli army's advance would be slow and difficult. But for weeks now, Hamas, outposts, and senior Hamas officials who played a key role in the war have been neutralized one after another. The rapid start of operations in the last 20 days or so and the encirclement of Gaza's perimeter may indicate that a major breakthrough on the central line is imminent. Apart from the center of Gaza, almost all the outposts and headquarters along the coastal strip have been destroyed.